gozaimasu. Before the event starts, I would like to make few requests. Please turn off your mobile phones or set it on silent mode during the seminar. There will be a networking session with refreshments in the foyer, which is just outside this auditorium. We hope you will join us. Ibento kaishimae ni onegai ga gozaimasu. Seminar chiu wa keitai denwa no denge no kirita daku ka manamodo ni sette shite itadakimasu yo onegai itashimasu. イベントの終了後、このコードのすぐ外にあるフォアで、軽食とネットワーキングセッションが開催されます。ぜひご参加くださいませ。Thank you for your cooperation. We will start the event shortly. ご協力ありがとうございます。まもなくイベントを開始いたします。Good evening, sir. We will first show a video on International Big Cat Alliance. International Big Cat Alliance に関するビデオを上映いたします。お願いします。
The planet is studded with some sparkling natural wealth, and there are some big cats, which are the apex predators living in extreme habitats, rugged terrains, and some of them have learned to adapt as well. The tiger is the biggest cat species belonging to the genus Panthera. Presently, approximately 4,200 to 4,400 tigers are left in the wild. The highly social lions occupy only 8% of the historic range. In Asia, the only wild population can be found in Saurashtra in India. The fastest terrestrial animal, cheetah, was the only cat species which was extinct from the Indian subcontinent. Under the visionary leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi, cheetah made a comeback on Indian soil, and the first cheetah cubs were born in March 2023. The highly adaptive leopard has the widest range as compared to other big cat species of the world. The jaguar is the largest big cat species of the Americas and is the third largest cat in the world after tiger and lion. The ghost of the mountains, the snow leopard, inhabits the world's most rugged terrains, the high-altitude mountain ranges of Central Asia. The cougar, also known as the puma or mountain lion, is native to the Americas. However, unlike lions, the puma is a solitary animal. To address the need for a global institution for preservation of big cats, a global partnership initiative to establish an international big cat alliance is being launched by India under the visionary leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. The overarching objective of the alliance is to create synergy through a collaborative platform for increased dissemination of benchmarking big cat conservation practices and provide access to a central common repository of technical know-how and corpus of funds to enhance the status of habitats, prey, and big cats in order to secure our ecological future and mitigate adverse effects of climate change. This partnership initiative to establish an international big cat alliance with focus on protection and conservation of 7 major big cats of the world, which are tiger, lion, leopard, snow leopard, puma, jaguar, and the cheetah, with the involvement of 97 range countries that harbors the said species. The alliance is also open for other interested countries and international organizations that are willing to contribute to IBCA's objectives.
हम गर्व के साथ कह सकते हैं कि भारत करीब 3000 टाइगर्स के साथ दुनिया के सबसे बड़े और सबसे सुरक्षित हैबिटाट्स में से एक है।
Thank you for the video. I would like to invite His Excellency Mr. C.V. George, Ambassador of India to Japan, to make the remarks. Chunichi indotai shi C.V. George kaka yori kaikai no go aisatsu itadakimasu. Onegai shimasu.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mrs. Deena Nandan, Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. Dr. Gobind Sagar Bharadwaj, Member Secretary, National Tiger Conservation Authority, Government of India. Sri Vinod Kumar Yadav, Member, National Biodiversity Authority, Government of India. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to welcome you all to today's seminar on the theme of the International Big Cat Alliance and India-Japan cooperation in biodiversity preservation. A warm welcome to Mrs. Leena Nandan, Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Dr. Gobind Sagar Bharadwaj, Member Secretary, National Tiger Conservation Authority, and Sri Vinod Kumar Yadav, Member, National Biodiversity Society, who are joined us today, and we look forward to their remarks. I am very happy to see a large number of participants who are joining us today. Particularly, I welcome our friends from Japan who have come and participating in this seminar today. When I was watching the video of the launch of International Alliance for Big Cat Alliance, which Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji had launched last year, and saw the beautiful pictures of tigers and lions and other big cats in India, I am reminded of my childhood when I saw first time a big cat. It is something each one of us can connect with. We are lucky that in India we have many of these big cats, whether it is tiger or lion or cheetah or leopard or puma. We have all of them, and it is indeed a great blessing to have all of them. Over the last few years, in fact, India has taken numerous steps for environment conservation through a holistic approach involving the participation of not just the government but the whole society. This includes landmark Mission Life for Environment initiative launched with the objective of creating a global mass movement towards sustainable living and environmental conservation. I recall the multiple environment-related events that we organized, including a lifestyle for environment life mission event here at the embassy. I had the great pleasure of receiving Honorable Minister of Environment of Japan yesterday at India House, and when we discussed about further collaboration in our environment-related engagement with Japan, including a dialogue which we do every year. We have an MOU which has been signed, and we would be further collaborating with Japan. And today, in the morning, I had the honor of receiving the Vice Minister for Environment in my office when we discussed further collaboration between our two countries. I am happy to share that earlier this month, on the World Environment Day, Honorable Prime Minister of India has launched a tree plantation campaign called Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam. That means one tree in the name of your mother, through which he has called on everyone around the world to plant a tree as a tribute to their mothers. In India, we have set a target of planting 800 million trees by September 2024. and 1.4 billion trees by March 2025 by following a whole of government, whole of society approach. There has also been special emphasis on protecting biodiversity and natural resources. Initiatives have included cataloging plant and animal species, expanding forest cover, and creating protected areas like national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. Programs such as Project Tiger, Project Elephant, and Project Dolphin focus on conserving specific species and their habitats, ensuring their protection for future generations. When we talk about elephants or wildlife collaboration, I have to talk about the elephants that have come from India to Japan, which which continue to inspire some of our Japanese friends. I should also mention about the story of peacocks. I am told that a few peacocks which was presented by India to Nagasaki almost 20 years ago has now grown into become around 200 peacocks. So this is another story of successful collaboration between India and Japan. India has recently launched, as we have seen, the International Big Cat Alliance as a multi-country, multi-agency coalition to support conservation of big cats such as tigers, lions, and leopards. By promoting knowledge sharing, capacity building, and resource support, Big Cat Alliance aims to enhance environmental resilience and address challenges arising from climate change and contribute towards stopping the decline in big cat population. We will hear in greater detail about the alliance shortly from the experts. India and Japan have been working together under the MOU which I mentioned. This also covers cooperation in conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. In conclusion, India's initiatives in environmental conservation and biodiversity preservation are not just national efforts but form part of a broader global collaboration and framework. Through initiatives like the Big Cat Alliance and our collaboration with the key partner countries such as Japan in the field of environment and biodiversity, we are committed to ensuring a sustainable and resilient future for our planet. I welcome each one of you again for today's event and wish you a very happy evening. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, sir. May I now invite Mrs. Leena Nandan, Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. Leena Nandan Sama. Hisho, Indo se fukankyo shinrin kiko hendo sho yori online de gokoe no itadakimasu.
Good morning from India and a very warm welcome to all the distinguished participants of today's seminar. It is really a pleasure to be interacting with you, even though in virtual mode, on the very important topic of the International Big Cat Alliance and to discuss several issues with regard to biodiversity conservation. In fact, as the ambassador has just apprised the distinguished audience, that India has taken several initiatives with respect to the environment, beginning with Lifestyle for Environment, the clarion call for which was given by our Honorable Prime Minister in 2021 at COP, wherein he emphasized that it is important for all of us as citizens of the world to actually start thinking how our individual and collective choices and behaviors can make a difference to the world we live in and can make a difference to the future of this planet. So this is something that, in fact, has found resonance in Japan as well. And I'm very happy that we have been interacting from this ministry with our distinguished colleagues in Japan on how we can actually take forward this whole momentum and bring about the awareness and the changes that are so important as we face the problem of climate change all across the world. The initiative for the International Big Cat Alliance is yet another demonstration of India's will and commitment towards actually protecting and conserving the environment. And this is actually demonstrated by the fact that India itself is home to 5 out of the 7 big cats. Not only have we been able to take robust steps for protecting and conserving the lion, the tiger, the snow leopard, and the leopard, we have also been able to successfully reintroduce the cheetah, which went extinct almost 75 years ago. And the first cheetah citizens were born in India last year. And this is a testimony to the success of our relocation and conservation efforts. Another example of how we have successfully been able to protect and increase the big cat population, especially in the area tigers, is the fact that 2 of our tiger reserves, Panna and Sariska, had seen 0 tigers. It was a very worrying situation for the country. And from there, we started very concerted efforts. And these efforts are actually a multi-stakeholder effort that actually encompasses not just the policymakers at the central and state government levels, but all the stakeholders, the wildlife experts, the conservationists, and most important, the community. It is only when the community takes the ownership and becomes part of this whole effort to protect and conserve the big cats that these successes take place. And as the apex species, the protection of the tiger ensures that the entire value chain is protected, because every little part of the value chain, the ecosystem that comprises the big cat, the flora and fauna, the prey base, the microbes, the bacteria, the fungi, all of them are interconnected and interdependent. So the fact that tigers are not just there, but flourishing, increasing in numbers, actually is a testimony to the fact that India's biodiversity conservation measures are on track. And this in the background of the fact that we have a 1.4 billion population, and we are a developing country that is moving fast to meet the development needs and aspirations of its population. So growing along with protecting the environment is something that we are successfully demonstrating. Ecology and economy, both are on track. Development and environment, both have been harmonized and balanced. And that is the success that we seek to take forward through a flagship initiative like the International Big Cat Alliance. I'm very happy to say that we already have 18 countries that are members of the International Big Cat Alliance. And the fact that the exchange of know-how, best practices, the best technology and conservation experiences is something that will resonate across the world, is what we would like to present to our distinguished participants today. And the presentation that will follow this, these comments that I'm making will actually bring out the unique facets and aspects of the International Big Cat Alliance. India and Japan are working together very closely in biodiversity conservation. I think somebody has their, I think the mic is on, Embassy of India. Could you switch it off, please? Because it is interfering with the comments. So as I said, India and Japan have a very robust partnership in biodiversity conservation. With JICA, India has been working very closely. And this biodiversity conservation also straddles a whole range of activities. So when we talk about transplantation of corals to protect our coastal areas, when we talk about mangrove plantation, because mangroves are the first line of defense when we find ourselves facing nature's fury in our coastal areas, and are also extremely rich sources for carbon sequestration and for the biodiversity conservation in coastal areas. So mangroves and protection of these mangroves, there is a very robust program that has been initiated last year, the Mangrove Initiative for Shoreline Habitats and Tangible Incomes, or MISHTI as we call it. is another demonstration of our partnership in the International Mangrove Alliance. So these are biodiversity conservation efforts that we have undertaken. India has increased the number of our Ramsar sites. We now have 82. 82 of our wetlands are covered under the Ramsar Convention. And these wetlands are another testimony to the fact that the community, the policy makers, government departments are all working together to protect our wetlands because they are equally critical to the future of this planet. So we are extremely hopeful that we would continue to work, and our robust partnership in many areas with Japan will also be taken forward into new arenas of cooperation, specifically on biodiversity conservation, specifically in the area of the International Big Cat Alliance, because it is through these efforts and through partnering with each other and taking forward international initiatives, not only the lifestyle for environment, but also Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam, Plant for Mother, the initiative that the Prime Minister launched on the World Environment Day this year, where we are exhorting all global citizens to join hands in planting and greening the planet, because this is the only way that we can combat desertification and halt and reverse land degradation. So it is forums like this and it is partnerships like this that are needed to forge very strong collaborations and translate the collaborations into actions on the ground. So thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to very meaningful and intensive discussions and deliberations and forging a joint pathway that this world and this planet really needs to be able to sustain itself. And for the future citizens, we are the trustees of the planet and we have to live up to our responsibilities. Thank you and wish you all a very good day. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. May I now invite Dr. Govind Sagar Bharadwaj, Member Secretary, National Tiger Conservation Authority, NTCA, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. Govind Sagar Bharadwaj Hakase, Indo Sefu, Kankyo, Shinrin, Hiko, Hendo Sho, Koka, Tora Hogo, Tokyoku, Jimukyoku, Yori online de Gokoeno itadakimasu.
Very good afternoon to all of you, Ma'am Secretary, His Excellency Mr. C.V. George, our senior colleague Mr. V.K. Yadav, and esteemed audience who are present on this seminar on International Big Cat Alliance and India-Japan Cooperation in Biodiversity Preservation. Next slide, please. Actually, IBCA, or International Big Cat Alliance, was a program initiated with an objective of securing the future of big cats. You know, persistent poaching and habitat destruction across the globe was always viewed as a big threat for the big cats. So there is a need of an agency with advanced technological and financial capabilities to support the big cat populations across the globe and also their habitat. So as we know, as ma'am has rightly said in her comments, that India has already shown her a leading role in the big cat conservation, especially with reference to Project Tiger that was launched in 1973 with a humble beginning of just 9 tiger reserves and with a population of 1,800 tigers. As on today, we do have more than 3,700 tigers, and there are around 55 tiger reserves in the country, covering an area of around 80,000 square kilometers of the country. So under this project only, that we have already shown the commitment for the big cat conservation. Not only big cat, we have already done work for the conservation of snow leopard, common leopards, and also Asiatic lion, where we are having a large population of Asiatic lion in Gir. As of today, we do have more than 600 population of Asiatic lion. So IPCA was launched by Honorable Prime Minister of India during our project Tigers 50th anniversary in the year 2023. And it's a demonstrated step of leadership in the position of Big Cat agenda to bring rich countries and other on a common platform, that is Big Cat diplomacy. And the IPCA was established and it was approved by Cabinet in the month of February 29, 2024. Next, please. So can you remove this side? This okay. So we do have there are major 7 big cats across the globe. These include leopard, jaguar, puma, snow leopard, and cheetah. So for the conservation of these big 7 cats, the IPCA is here. So the membership will be the rich countries who are having these big cats, and also other partners, including NGOs, business houses, and even corporates who will surely going to come for the conservation of these big cats. And it is a multi-country partnership organization. Can you remove this sidebar having, it's a, yes, thank you. Next, please. So focus areas include that is a synergy through a collaborative platform for increased dissemination of benchmarking for big cat conservation practices. Okay. Next is to provide access to a central common repository of technical know-how and to generate corpus of funds to strengthen the existing species-specific intergovernmental platforms, networks, and transnational initiatives of conservation and protection, and to secure our ecological future and mitigate adverse impacts of climate change. Next, please. Next, please. So IBCA framework includes global issues with local impact, that is wildlife conservation, a global agenda that requires international alliance to address locally, keep in view of the global challenges. It's a unified effort for big cats that aims to unite countries, partners, and business for big cat conservation. And there will be centralized resource hub to strengthen conservation to protect big cats by establishing a centralized repository for best practices, personal and finances. That's one of the major first area that we are going to do. So as efficient resource utilization, including efficient sharing of minimized costs and leverage best practices. Multifaceted approach, that is building links, advocacy, finance, education, and sustainable livelihoods. And one of the most important, the public awareness and support. That's very important. A crucial role of ambassadors is very important. And in addition to that, that is raising public awareness and also sensitization among masses for big cat conservation. That's why we do have this esteemed audience, how to take this message to all others. So it will be a green economy and collaboration. I will say collaboration drives green economy for all stakeholders, transforming the conservation landscape. Next, please. Next. So, the crucial backslide, please. Backslide. So the crucial role of IPCA in biodiversity conservation, and let's have a comprehensive outlook that it's a shared responsibility, having diverse expertise for resource mobilization, for capacity building. The capacity building means the sharing of knowledge, skills, traditional knowledge inclusion, center of excellence, and training programs. One of the most important strategy for big cat conservation. And research and innovation includes scientific contribution, evidence-based studies, and global scientific partnerships will be taken care of. Next, please. Others include policy advocacy, community engagements, private sector engagement, trans-boundary collaborations, conflict resolution, monitoring and evaluation, sustainability integration, and global framework integration of biodiversity. For example, the HE biodiversity targets and coming for monitoring global framework for biology conservation and climate adaptation and human well-being will be taken care of. Next, please. So, key action portfolios of international big cat license includes conservation strategy, planning, and policy culminates in national action plan for 10 years. That is from 23 to 2033, and it also includes strategic planning for the conservation of wildlife. E-portal for 24 multiplies 7 real-time suggestions for big cat conservation projects. Sharing, as I told you, sharing of best practices and successful case studies. For example, cheetah translocation, cheetah reintroduction, that is cheetah recovery plan in our country. Assist members in designing financial instruments to augment resources, to share the perspectives on transmission of research outcomes to an on-ground situation, development of standards, specifications, and protocols in different thematic areas in big cat conservation, to generate and diffuse key learning on new practices and experiences, including technology, to encourage collaboration in identifying and deploying available resources in range countries, and to develop strategies accordingly, to encourage industries and even business houses among IBC members, to forge cooperative linkages on development of Center of Excellence for Research and Development in range countries, and to design training programs for field officials, wildlife researchers, policy makers, and organizing workshops, focus meetings, and conferences too. Next, please. So, if we look at the governance structure, it will be an assembly of members, that is ministerial. There will be a steering committee of focal points. There will be a standing committee, and secretariat will be comprising of Director General and other supporting staff of human resource finance, IT, communication and outreach programs, legal and programs, and technical experts. These will be the part of the secretariat. The headquarters will be at India. Next, please. So we are on 16th of April 2024. The first steering committee meeting has already been held in New Delhi, and 14 countries participated, including 7 partner organizations. So major decisions of this first international steering committee were the Constitution Interim Secretariat, framework agreement was finalized, rules of procedure assembly, manuals of regulations, IBCA branding, and IBCA annual budget work plan and budget were formalized. Next, please. So for financial sustainability of IBCA, Government of India has already initiated its support of $20 million. And we also see voluntary contribution from bilateral and multilateral agencies, other appropriate institutions, and interest accrued from augmented corpus. So mobilizing financial support from public sector organizations, national and international financial institutions, and donor agencies through CSR or CR will be looked into. Next, please. So if we see, if I wrap up what we are going to see in future, it's a sustainable future for big cats and common communities, local communities. It's a well integrated with again I'm repeating, well integrated with HE biodiversity conservation targets are coming. Monitoring Global Biodiversity Framework, that is GBF. It aligns with the existing intergovernmental platforms like IUCN, CITES, GTF, GEF, UNDP, and UNEP programs. It will ensure the sustainable use of natural resources and mitigating challenges emanating from climate change. And by safeguarding big cats and their ecosystems, the IBCA contribute to natural climate adaptation, water and food security, and also sustainable development goals. That these are SDGs. Well-being of millions of communities reliant on these ecosystems who are living adjoining to these such landscape will be improved. Next. So it's not new. India and Madam has already spoken well about India-Japan cooperation on biodiversity conservation. So that's India and Japan do have special strategic global partnership firmly rooted in the history and based on common values of the two countries. They share objectives for achieving peace, prosperity, and progress to realize a better future for the people of these two countries. In terms of biodiversity conservation, the JICA of Japan contributes financial support for biodiversity conservation, natural resource management with a total outlay of around 1,000 crores, which is taken up across the 11 states of the country. Next, please. Next, please. Not only this, the Ministry of Environment of Japan and the Ministry of Environment and Forests of the Republic of India, this dialogue on environmental issues and continuous discussion on environmental issues such as solid waste management, climate change, and air pollution. We also have a MOC between Ministry of Agriculture, Forest and Fisheries of Japan, and also MOF between MOF and CC of Government of India. Next, please. So that's all about this presentation of JICA, an initiative that was launched in our country. So please join hands, join this alliance, and I thank you all for listening to this presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now invite Mr. Vinod Kumar Yadav, member of National Biodiversity Authority, NBA, and former Principal Chief Conservator of Forest and Chief Wildlife Warden of West Bengal, to give an online presentation. Vinod Kumar Yadav, Shi, Kokuritsu, Seibutsu, Taiyo Tokyoku no member de Ari, Nishi Bengarishu, Nomoto Shinrin, Hogo Shunin Oyobi Yasei Seibutsu Hogo Shunin Yori, online de Gokoe no itadakimasu.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. His Excellency Mr. C.B. George, Ambassador of India to Japan. This is Leena Nandan, Secretary, Government of India, Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change. Dr. Govind Sagar Bharadwaj, Member Secretary, National Tiger Conservation Authority, Government of India. Dignitaries present there, ladies and gentlemen. You have heard the previous deliberations in detail, and I appreciate it has given light to all the subject which we are going to discuss. And now we are going to discuss about the biodiversity conservation in India and the initiative. Secretary Madam has already highlighted the points that what the India is doing in the field of biodiversity conservation and how we are, related to the problems of the biodiversity conservation in India, our strategies, and that we are taking the action plan ahead. Next slide, please. Now the question is, why biodiversity conservation? We all know, we have heard and read in the schools, but it's like the natural ecosystem perform fundamental life support system. This is very, very important important and vital for the survival of the human being and all the life forms on the planet. Second, it is, since we look from the value, the economic value, so it is giving around more than $33 trillion of economy to the global assets, and at least 40% of the world's economy and 80% of needs of the poor are derived from biological resources. So they are very, very important. And biodiversity safeguards human health is very well known. All the medicine and plants which we are derived is from the nature. And it is also essential for food and water security. I need not explain all these things in detail. Next, please. But there are all these services we are coming to us. They are provided to the mankind by nature free of cost. That is important. Since we get free of cost, we don't understand the value of this. And once it is converted in the terms of the economy, then we understand that this is, how the valuable the biodiversity is. Next, please. There are few global issues. The 50% of the global GDP. Why I am saying all these things is because how the biodiversity is important. The 50% of the global GDP is dependent on nature. We all know, and the total value of global ecosystem services which are provided free of cost to us is more than $120 trillion per year. It is per year. And the 75% of the global food crops rely on animal pollination. Can we think of this world without insects? No, we will not survive. That is why we are saying the food security of the country, the food security of the global level is dependent on the biodiversity. Further, the biodiversity and the forests, etc., they 5.6 gigatons of carbons are absorbed by the forest, wetlands, and ocean every year. I'm talking about every year. What is stored is something different. It is very high, and it is very high in them. So the loss of biological diversity would be catastrophic, not only for the planet, but for the global economy. So we all understand that it is very important to conserve the biodiversity. Next, please. Next, please. And what we have done with the biodiversity, there is a crisis of the biodiversity conservation, and the global population of mammal, birds, amphibian, reptile, fishes have declined to an average of 69% since 1970, and more than 1 million known species could be in decades. This is all the international publication and the fora and the scientists that they are warning us. More than 90% of the cities and 75% of accessible freshwater sources depend on forested watersheds to filter sediment and nutrient. That is what we are saying, that these are very, very important for the water security in future. And the half of the world food suffer annual losses as much as 16% of total production due to invasive and non-native species. So what is important is this invasive species, they are also creating problems to the habitat, they are creating problem to the biodiversity, and also they are creating problem in the food production. Next, please. So if we see the loss of species biodiversity is very, very high. Every 20 minutes, 3,500 human beings' lives they're born and come to the earth, but more than one species is lost in 20 minutes. And every 60 minutes, the 240 acres of the habitat is destroyed. and the 70% of the world, this population is suffering, species, and the 75% of the genetic diversity is we have lost. So this is the kind of crisis that we are facing today, and more than 80% of the diversity of the habitat we have lost because of the exotic species. Yes. Next, please. Yeah, coming to India, India is one of the 12 mega biodiversity country of the world, and we contribute 2.4% of the world land mass, but 8% of the world biodiversity. This is quite commendable, and since we have the huge human population also, and in spite of that, we are able to protect and conserve more than 8% of the world biodiversity. We have got 4 hotspots in India, which is in the Western Ghats, Eastern Ghats, the Himalayas, and the islands and the Northeast. So these are the hotspots where the biodiversity is very high. We have 12 biogeographical provinces, 16 major forest types, and not only that, we have got 221 forest subtypes, and which covers around 47,000 plants, and which is more than 11.4% of the world. So this is the biodiversity. One of the important point that I want to highlight is that 28% of the plants are endemic. You know, these plants, which are more than 11,000 plants, are found only in India and nowhere in the world. So they are very endemic and to the different biogeographic zones of the India. We have also 379 worldwide relatives of the crops which are found in the country. Next, please. Next, please. Taking at the faunal diversity, we have more than 1 lakh of the arthropoda is very, very high, which is 7.2% of the world. The birds, the diversity, now the number has gone up. This is an old data, the 14% of the world. We have the birds diversity. Reptiles, we have 7.9% of the worlds. And mammals, we have 8.58% of the worlds. And similarly, the fishes, the diversity of fishes in India is also very high, which is 11.72% of the world, and the more than 8.24%. So overall, if we see the 8% of the biodiversity that we contribute to the world scenario. Next, please. Now, what are the main drivers of the loss of the biodiversity? We all know that habitat loss and degradation is one of the major causes of loss of biodiversity all over the globe, and similarly it is happening in India also. Now the biggest one of the threat which is hanging on is climate changes and global warming. It's a real threat which is, we are experiencing, and this is going to give another crisis of the biodiversity if it is not, the steps are taken properly. Third thing is the pollution of the environment, which is happening to the air, to the water, and to the other places, noise pollutions. They are causing loss of biodiversity. The another aspect, because of the human population, which is very high, and the kind of the greed that we have, the over exploitation of natural resources is one of the major causes of loss of biodiversity. The another thing which I highlighted earlier also, the invasive alien species is now one of the major cause, and we have to look from the management point of view that if it is not managed properly, the conservation is going to suffer. The another thing is the land conversion. Because of the the developmental activities which is happening because of the the impact of the anthropogenic pressure which is happening with land conversion is also taking place, and this is one of the major causes as per in the global scenario. Next, please. Next, please. Yes. Now, coming to the major threat to the biodiversity, especially in India, the anthropogenic pressure, which is the human pressure on the forest and the other resources, bioresources, is very, very high because of the population. The second thing is the diversion of the forest for developmental activity, though we are keeping a kind of an harmonious balance between the development and the ecology, but there are pressures and there are diversion of taking place of the forest area, which is also a cause of a concern. Similarly, the encroachment of the forest areas is in the certain habitat is lost. Their habitat are fragmented and the habitat are destructed. So destruction of the habitat, fragmentation of the habitat, and we are losing the animal corridors which are there, which helps in migration. The another important factor is the poaching and illegal trade. That is how we request of the other countries also. We are the party to the so many convention to control the illegal internationally, because the trade is happening internationally. The other factor which is contributing to the loss of biodiversity is uncontrolled forest fire. This uncontrolled forest fire, which is repeated mainly in the hilly terrains and other dry areas, is causing loss of biodiversity. Next, please. Now, what is the kind of the India's policy? And we have prepared the National Action Plan for the National Biodiversity Action Plan, and we are also in the process of revision it. We are doing it since 1999 onwards, and though there is not a very specific and separate policy for biodiversity conservation, but the forest policy that we have that covers the wildlife, that covers the biodiversity, and it is the aspects of the biodiversity conservation is still there. Now, because of the different kind of conventions, the different international treaties that we are party to it, the India is giving it the shape in the form of the action plans. Now, our policy as such is the priority to the biodiversity conservation, the ecological security of the country, and reducing the biodiversity threats. That is one of the important things. Then address the climate change issues, which is there, which has been already discussed earlier also. One of the major thrusts is the people's participation in conservation, that the India is giving a priority to also the equitable sharing of the resources among local communities. So this is one of our most priority, because the biodiversity conservation cannot be done if we leave the like that. We have to actively involve them. Their participation in conservation is must. Next is the rational land use policy. Though we have to little bit work on this issue, the rational land use policy, but we are having a kind of an document that how the land will be used for biodiversity conservation. And more than 5% of the land is now the protected areas in the country. We also give focus on the sustainable development, which Secretary Madam has already highlighted, that the harmonious development will go hand in hand with the ecology. So this is our main policy. Now, there are certain important policy and plan for environment and biodiversity which are related which are related to the biodiversity conservation. This is the National Forest Policy. As I earlier told you, National Conservation Strategy and Policy Statement of Environment and Development, National Policy and Macro Level Action Strategy on Biodiversity, National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, and National Wildlife Action Plan, National Agriculture Policy, National Water Policy, National Environment Policy, and National Action Plan on Climate Change. So these all the thrust areas which highlight and incorporate the biodiversity conservation in their agenda. Next, please. So if you, next, please. Next, please. So there is a paradigm shift in conservation of biodiversity, and it has come like in the last more than a decade or so, care for nature and people. And this is the kind of a paradigm shift which has taken place from degrade, abandon, and migrate to restore, sustain, and protect in the natural resource management aspects. Ensure effective stakeholder participation and empowerment, inclusive of gender, youth, marginalized, and vulnerable people. This is one of the focus area. Decentralize responsibility and devolve power and authority. It's very important for us to adopt local level decision making, which we have taken it from the grassroots. Harmonize and align sectoral policy and planning process over institutional barriers. Because there are so many sectors which are related to the climate change, they are related to the wildlife conservation, biodiversity conservation, and forest conservation. So wetland conservation. So these are to be, harmonized and then translate international agreements and national policy strategies and plan into concrete actions at the local level. So these are the kind of a paradigm shift which is taking place in the country. Next, please. Honorable Secretary has already highlighted on the kind of a life mission, lifestyle for environment. This is the kind of a mission which our Honorable Prime Minister has highlighted about the mindful and deliberate utilization, not mindless and destructive consumption is needed today. And it is a living biocultural tradition of India that the biodiversity is life, and living in the harmony with the nature is our motto, and that is what we are following it for sustainable lifestyle and choices which can help restore degradation land, promote the conservation of marine and terrestrial biodiversity, global resource use, and CSG emissions. So this is one of the major programs that is we are taking place, and the awareness generation among the local people regarding this, that is how we can safeguard the biodiversity in the country. Next, please. Already Dr. Bharadwaj has highlighted about the ecosystem-based approach for conservation of the big cats in the country. So not only we conserve the big cats, but by conserving the big cat, we also conserve the biodiversity. We have got more than 53 tiger reserves, and we have got more than 33 elephant reserves, which are not only protecting the keystone species, but they are also protecting and conserving the associated biodiversity in these forested areas. So our approach and the strategy is like ecological approach for planning and development management. We have a very set kind of an planning, and we have got management plans for each and every protected area, national parks, sanctuaries, tiger reserve, elephant reserve, and that is how these plans are giving us the direction for the biodiversity conservation. The next is expansion of the protected areas to cover biogeographic zones. We have got more than 1,000 protected areas in the country, which is there for the biodiversity conservation also. Regular monitoring of flora and fauna is key to the biodiversity conservation. This is one of the key strategies which is happening. Eco-restoration of degraded habitat. As I said, this is now the kind of a decade of the restoration of the degraded habitat. So the India is also doing different practices, whether it is plantation activities or eco-restoration of degraded habitat. Control of poaching, fire, weeds, etc. is our priority. And then incorporation of biodiversities into regional planning is also given a thrust, so that all the regions, they understand the importance of the biodiversity, and in their plans, whatever plan they have, whether it is a rural plan or the urban plan, they should incorporate the biodiversity issue into it. The important thing, as we discussed earlier, that in India we cannot think of without the people participation, and there are eco-developmental activities of the fringe villages which are near to the forest area. So these villages are given priority and eco-development is taking place in these fringe areas. Now, as I said, the protected area network, we have got more than 6 national parks covering more than 44,000 square kilometers of the areas. It is more than 573 wildlife sanctuaries, which cover more than 123,000 square kilometers of the area, and 53 tiger reserve, 33 elephant reserve, 18 biosphere reserve. So more than 5% of the total geographical area is totally protected. That is how the India is going towards the biodiversity conservation. We are focusing to cover more and more protected area in the different biodiversity zone. Next, please. Already we are not, I'm not, next please. Next please. I'm just giving you a kind of a view that it has already been discussed with Dr. Bharadwaj. Project Tiger was launched, crocodile breeding project, a different project for conservation of the biodiversity and specific species, which was launched by the Government of India. Lesser Catch project, Manipur Pro Antler Deer project. This is one of the very, very endangered species of and the variety of deer found in India. The project Elephant, which not only conserve the elephant through the elephant reserves, but they also conserve the biodiversity. Next, please. So similarly, the project Rhino, Himalayan Musk Deer, project Hangul, and Nawami Gange project. So they are a different project. Now the dolphin project has also been launched. The wetland conservation is also taking place in India. So overall, the emphasis is not only the covering the different biogeographic zones, different forest types, but different keystone species which are endangered. There are conservation breeding programs which are taking place in the country for the endangered species, and then they are released like what we have seen in Red Panda and the Gharial and the other crocodile projects. Similarly, the cheetah project has also been discussed in detail by Dr. Bharadwaj. Next, please. I think the time is less. This is the kind of a repetition which I have already said. I will next slide, please. So the various kind of action plan, now we are in the process of the Montreal Biodiversity Framework, which was given to us. We have prepared, we have national consultation, regional consultations, and the interministerial consultation for preparing of this action plan, which gives highlighting the reducing the threats to the biodiversity, This is biodiversity, inclusive, integrated land, sea use planning. This is the kind of emphasis given to the ecosystem restoration, protection and conservation of land and sea areas, management of species and genetic diversity. There are different action plans and action points for this. The harvest, trade, and use of the species, invasive alien species. These are the highlights. Reduce pollution risk and negative impacts. It's very, very important for the biodiversity and reducing the threats. To minimize the impact of the climate change is one of the key subject that we are focusing on. There are myriad action points, and it is going to be a kind of an interministerial approach, the interdisciplinary approach to reduce the climate change and save the biodiversity in the area. Next, please. Next, please. As I said, the sustainable management and people participation is very, very important. Previous one, please. Previous one. Previous one. Back. Yes. This is the sustainable use of and for multiple benefit is the thrust of the government. Sustainable management of agriculture, aquaculture, fisheries and forestry for biodiversity conservation is our highlight. Then regulation of air, water hazards and extreme events is given emphasis, and the increased access